Well, people visiting the popular Vilakazi street in Soweto say South Africa cannot afford another strict lockdown. People are waiting to see if President Cyril Ramaphosa will address the nation in the coming days after the emergence of the new COVID-19 variant, now known as Omicron. Now, the President and the National Coronavirus Command Council met yesterday, Saturday. We're still not clear on the outcomes of their deliberations. But let's go live to Soweto now, bring in Newzroom Afrika senior reporter Malungelo. Booi, Malu, you've been able to speak to people there. Businesses that have already been struggling were beginning to recover and now are concerned that as we see a new variant and a rise in the number of infections, they may face a similar lockdown to what we saw at the end of last year.
It's incredible, Tembi, because when you walk around the popular Vilakazi street, the businesses are actually getting ready to open for trade. And when you speak to some people who live along the street, they'll be telling you about how concerned they are about, this new variant and whether the president will lock this country down yet again. But some people are saying that this country cannot afford, a hard lockdown. I want to bring in Ulebogang. Ulebogang is the marketing manager here at Sakumzi restaurant. It's one of those popular hangouts here, Tembi, in Vilakazi Street in Soweto. Ulebogang, thank you so much for your time. I mean, one of the things that a lot of people that I've been speaking to, whether it's here in Vilakazi Street or elsewhere in Johannesburg or in Gauteng, people are saying essentially, we can't afford a hard lockdown. You share that sentiment?
Yes. Malungelo, thank you so much for visiting us here at Sakumzi restaurant and also to find out, our preparedness and how we feel about, the hard lockdown. It's terrible, especially for those who are less fortunate, if we are going to have another hard lockdown to be put in place, because we've just come off another one in July, and that was accompanied by a lot of looting, and people are angry. And also another thing is that back then, as far back as last year, December, we had another lockdown again, and business were affected here in Soweto and actually throughout the whole country. So we are not in a position, to be closing. Yes, there are measures which are there. They are, we are all trying whatever we can. We sanitize. We have 5 sanitizer stations around the restaurant. And where we are now, we cannot afford another lockdown again.
Ulebogang, tell me about the impact of the harder lockdown that it has had on this particular business in terms of staff and just revenue.
Yes. So before we had even the initial lockdown last year, we had 110 people who were working here on 2 shifts. And we also had a lot of indirect people who were selling arts and craft things outside the restaurant, actually the entire Vilakazi street. And obviously with the corona coming into the country from, so now it means people are losing their income. People are scared to travel. People are scared to come to Soweto and any other eatery, irrespective, because we are not the only restaurant who's affected by the lockdowns and COVID-19. So we are deeply impacted by that because it means there's no income for the restaurant, and we have to find other alternative means like doing takeaways, to try and sustain the business, but it is very, very hard for us.
I want to ask you quickly, Ulebogang. I mean, there's also a travel ban that other countries have imposed on South Africa, and I suppose that will also affect you guys because this is a popular street here in Soweto.
Yes, definitely, because us as a restaurant, we are known as a tourist destination. We've got guests coming from France. The other day we had tourists coming from Poland, and we were also hosting a number of delegates from each of the countries. I think they had I don't know what they call it, a conference. They were all here not so long ago, a couple of days ago, to find out the situation, also for them to make plans going forward, because that's how they would advise their country based on what's happening here. So we've the travel ban in all the countries, it means we don't get tourists who are coming to explore South Africa, to see the beauty of the country, and also to find out what we as a restaurant we are all about.
I want to ask you one last question. I mean, what is it that you would say to the president? Whatever he says, what is it that you'd want to hear him say?
What I would like the president to focus on is the number of jobs which are already lost this year alone, and for him to consider that if the country is going to have a hard lockdown, that there is going to a lot of job losses.
Yeah.
So that has to be put in place. Those who are less fortunate, can they please be considered? Because not all of us are fortunate to have jobs. Those who don't have, we have to look out for them. So measures have to be put in place, but not a hard lockdown. We still need to trade as business.
All right, so thank you so much for your time, Lebo Makola Tembi. He's the marketing manager here at Sakumzi Restaurant, essentially saying that whatever the president says when he speaks, bear in mind we don't know when he will speak. We cannot, as a country, afford a harder lockdown. And also, we've got to consider the many jobs that have been lost in this country. And we know, Tembi, that a lot of people during the first lockdown lost a lot of employment opportunities. And again, in the second lockdown, people lost, employment opportunities. And as you heard Lebo Hang saying that South Africa can no longer afford a harder lockdown anymore.
Malungelo Booi reporting live for us this morning from Soweto. Malu, let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you next hour.